All right, I'd like to take a second to talk about a recent article that was published talking about rent declines in a place like Denver and how it's, I guess, in terms of price, and how it's Denver has dethroned like Austin in terms of seeing things like rent prices decline. And I've been suggesting that something like this is going to happen uh, for a long time now. And I'm not saying that to stroke my ego. I'm not the only person who, I guess, saw this coming. It was just a matter of paying attention to these individual markets and those dynamics playing out. So I'm in no way surprised by that. Um, Look, the problem that we have right now um, is that really those markets, but all markets, we have a lot of structural supply. And on top of that, the labor market is really softening everywhere. Um, so, what it really boils down to is we just have a lot of speculators, oftentimes landlords, who just don't understand their customer. And more specifically, what I'm saying is these rent assumptions that they have baked into their models are extremely optimistic. I mean, look, I've said this more times than I can count. Just like any other business, you have to know your customer, right? And that is the household. So how in the world are you going to know if your rent assumptions are reasonable without understanding the local household? So, in other words, can they even afford the rent? What do the households themselves look like? Um, are they like younger people, or are they older people? Like, how many people per home are there? Is it like a single person who's maybe, like, we'll call it like divorced or something, and they have maybe a kid living with them? Is it two unrelated people living together? How many incomes per home? Uh, how does that compare across markets? How has it changed over time? Um, I will bring stuff up like that to a lot of these landlords, and it's like a deer in headlights. Man, they don't even, like, a lot of people don't even know that shit exists. But I'm just gonna tell you right now, from where I sit, uh, that is absurdly irresponsible in the face of elevated rates and a softening labor market. I mean, do you actually think that you're going to hit your numbers? So, look, I'll talk about, you know, Denver and Austin and even a place like Nashville. And that article from Yahoo Finance even, I mean, pointed to all three of those, right? In addition to obviously Denver getting all the attention. And there's some common dynamics playing out in those markets that you're going to see, and that is, and really it's city center, but to varying degrees all over those metros. The the population in general is just younger, and I start there because usually there's going to be some downstream implications when you look at the households themselves. So population is younger, maybe there's going to be like a lot more renters. That's especially true city center. Um, on top of that, they're very cost burdened. So around half of those households are paying 30% plus of their income uh, towards something like that. It's around 25% are paying 50% plus of their income towards rent. And that's just increased dramatically, especially after COVID. And it was already an issue prior to COVID, but it's really gotten out of hand. But on top of that, those three markets, right, that I've specifically brought up as having those ingredients for something like this to happen. The households, there's especially the renters. There's a higher concentration of young renter households, and they're also smaller in size. So what that means is, like, just in general, young people, they just make less money. They've had less time to accumulate wealth. The unemployment rate in general is just higher for younger people. And if on top of that, the households are just smaller in size in terms of the number of people, you theoretically have fewer incomes per home. So that's like sort of like a recipe for disaster. In other words, that makes your renter base very vulnerable to a softening labor market, which we are seeing in those markets, but really all over the place. So, look, I've shown that data at a national level, all over the country, okay? Some version of that exists all over the place. And so, somebody's going to say, well, it's only limited to those three. And there's so much cherry picking these days. And they're going to say it's just an isolated event. But look, some version of that exists all over the place. It's just a matter of watching this thing play out at varying rates of change all over the place. You have oftentimes record structural supply in these markets on top of a softening labor market, on top of very cost-burdened households. The renters are really the ones bearing the weight of it because they are subject to market rates. They didn't buy a home 15 years ago when rates were, nothing, and, home prices were a lot cheaper than they are now. So, you can say that, look, I'm a doomer or something for suggesting that price just doesn't always go up. But I'm just going to tell you right now, from where I sit, if somebody is going to suggest that, we're in some new real estate super cycle and they can't actually provide any data to back it up, then what are you doing? That sounds like a fucking pep rally to me. That's kind of terrifying. So, we have a math problem in this country more than anything. People have gotten very lazy and complacent with rates being, so low for so long. Ultimately, what's happened here, and people just do real dumb shit when rates are low for a long time. That's what's happened. And look, just because somebody gets on, YouTube or whatever, and these landlord bros, and they feel like they can say stuff with enough bravado and conviction, then it's going to just will itself into existence. That is a crazy person. Why would you not take a hard look at your rent assumptions to see if there are any holes in your logic? It doesn't matter where you land on this issue. This is not my opinion, okay? Just look at the data. So, yeah. I think we're just gonna, like I said, we're just gonna have to learn the hard way. All right, so have fun.